I go to the University of Utah. I'm studying pre-med. So I've never actually done ceramics before. This is kind of my first time trying it out. I hope it works out. No, I do ceramics is my minor at school. So it's coming down here, help out a little bit.
Grab this board out of the visual. Do you want the microphone?
No. Yeah, a loud mouth.
That's just what I remember.
Right. You guys like wheel throwing more or hand building more? Wheel? Any hand builders? Not one in the whole class? Huh.
I'll do whatever.
You do whatever you make them?
And ask him questions as you're going.
Yeah, what he said.
As he's going, yeah.
So, is it a good time to tell him I've never done a teapot, or shall we tell after?
Well, you just did, so.
I was watching videos last night to learn how to make a teapot. So I got my hour in.
Nice.
So we're just gonna get it centered like normal. Clean off the edge.
Kind of nerve-wracking, isn't it?
I know, no kidding.
I should have all of you do a demo.
Do a demo?
Today, 'cause there's a crazy all the way around where you know what you're doing, you're sort of talking about what you're doing, but you're having an inner dialogue about, am I doing this right? Is this going the, and it's a wild little conundrum of making. You
Okay.
want to look good, but
True. So I love to slow after centering. I keep my wheels super slow, especially 'cause I look around and everyone's like going super fast always. It just stresses me out, and there's no reason not to have it slow. So I like it super slow. Go open it up. Got a good air bubble in there, so that's good. Pull it out. When throwing on the wheel, what problems do you have? What do you seem to struggle the most with? What do you come across? Are you guys just all pretty perfect at it? Nothing?
It's like to get exactly what you want.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
yeah, the real specific shape is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Like throwing whatever, just something random is.
Mm-hmm. Do Do you guys always plan out what you're doing beforehand?
Depends.
Kinda. That's always helped me, but that doesn't always end the way you want it, obviously. But if it were perfect, people would think that you bought it from the store, right? I had a wise friend tell me that. He's a wise one. Okay, I'm gonna slow it down even more, and then start pulling up. Something I always run across, the problem that I always come across is when pulling up, you can always go back, you can always take it out, but it's super hard to go back in. So always focus on kind of building up and in, and then you can go out. It's the same with teapots, same with kind of anything that you're going up with. Focus on going in. So with teapots, I think one of the focuses is you need to make sure you leave enough clay at the top. Cause, did you show them anything with teapots yet? With what we call the gallery, so you're gonna have a lid that sits on top of a gallery. With the gallery, you'll see right here, obviously you need enough clay left over to be able to make that at the end. So make sure not to thin it out too much at the top. Another pull up.
While he's doing this poll, I'll talk about really quick one of the things that I want to focus on for this project, and it is I don't want to call it perfection, but I want it to be some of your best work, and I want us to take some time on it. So we have today and Wednesday for demos, Friday to start, Tuesday and Thursday, and then we're at the end of the term, so that's 3 days working on it. And then I probably want to go another 2 days after that. So like make it a 5-day project where everything is just crisp and clean, and you've thrown a bunch of lids and you've really tried to make it work really well. We'll also do the same thing with hand building. In a minute we'll talk about that. So I want you to work hard on it, but I want you to also focus on the details and the specificness of the teapot and not rush.
Okay, so I'm gonna start giving it some body, bring it out, and it's important to make sure that before you close it up at the top to take out all the water, or else if that's sitting in there, it's gonna leave some good cracks. Okay, I'm gonna rivet on the outside. I always like to, not with a serrated one though. Do you have any metal in drum?
Serrated, right?
Yeah.
There's probably one in that bucket.
Oh, there's one there. Any questions so far with what's going on? Nothing. If you rib it right now, what part of the purpose of ribbing it right now is to help compact it so that when you're messing with the top and trying to form the gallery a bit, it'll be a lot more stable. You won't have to worry about it collapsing in. Okay, so there's still a little water in the inside, so I'm going to clean it out because I'm going to close up the top. Make sure it's nice and dry in there. Okay, now we're going to form the gallery, and I like to get a wood rib. And there's two ways to kind of do this. I'll teach you one, but tell you about the other. You can either start on the outside and form what's called an external gallery, and you guys can try both of these ways too, whatever is easiest for you. And you'll start on the outside and kind of chop it in half and bring clay. So you're chop it on the outside half, so clay will come out here. I think it's a little easier to do it on the inside, and then you'll see what I'll do there. But clay will start gathering. I'll push it down, and clay will start gathering on the inside, and it'll start forming that kind of thing. I'll clean off the top before I do that. Make sure it's nice and centered.
There's a whole poster of lids and galleries over here. Never looked at that.
So I actually lied. I'm going to use my finger instead of the wood rib. You guys can obviously try both and see what's easiest for you. So we're going to kind of push down. And in. And you'll start to see it'll start forming that kind of look where where the lid can sit up in there. So I'm going to bring the outside down a little more to make it a little thicker, and then bring the inside in. Okay, so right now I'm looking at it, I don't like the way that necessarily goes out and then kind of up. It doesn't look very natural. So I'm going to push, even after you do the gallery, you can still kind of fix the shape a little bit and adjust it the way you want it to look. So I'm going to push the top in, and then after that I can readjust the gallery a little more.
doing this, can you imagine in your head, like, if that was you on the wheel, what would you do to adjust it? Like, where would you put your hands? Obviously, you're not feeling the clay, but what would you do to adjust that? What would you do on the shape? What would you do on whatever? You can set it up front there. Yeah, that'd be great. Nick Millette, he's a former student, he's demoing today.
So now that I pushed that in a little bit, the gallery, the place where the lid sits, almost went away. The best thing about it is I can just do the same thing I did before and to build that up. So I'll push down and in on the inside half of that lid of the top. And then there'll be another place for that to sit. Make that bigger. You'll want to focus on support on the inside. Focus on supporting by lifting it up because it'll be super. Obviously, it's thinner than a lot of the clay that we work with, so you'll need to put a few fingers there to support. Make sure it doesn't get super wobbly, and keep it even as you're pushing down. And I'll take the sponge to kind of clean everything up a little bit, smooth it out. One thing that you can focus on and that I like to do is try to get close to a 90-degree angle on this part and the part that the lid will sit on. The reason that's helpful is because when you glaze it, if you do glaze this area, that glaze will have a place to fill in. But if it's just round, then that glaze will just kind of fill up and the lid won't sit very tightly. But if you do a 90-degree angle there, that glaze will kind of fill that gap in and then make a nice curve. Then the lid will have a nicer place to sit. So I'm gonna you kind of use my nail to do that, to make it close to a 45-degree angle or 90-degree angle. There we go. What questions do you have? So you all can do it right now? First try, we're good? Should you have someone demo? Not kidding. Yeah, let's do it.
Adelaide was raising her hand.
You can go kind of in half, make a small one. Do you want to show a lid?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there calipers over there? There are.
Yes, there are.
Let me grab some clay.
Okay, so there's two things we're gonna have to measure here to do the lid. Obviously there's the inside, the smaller measurement, and then we have to measure this part as well. Have you guys made any lids for anything yet? Any lidded containers? No? Some of you have. So the two measurements I was talking about, the bigger one, smaller one obviously, that'll sit in here, just like that. Cute. Should I do another wheel or cut it off?
We'll just cut it off.
Oh, I'm gonna trim it up a little bit.
Hoping you figured that one out.
Yeah. That's one thing I still haven't figured out. Jones always makes fun of me for this. All my pieces are super heavy because I don't ever trim it up. So I'm learning still. And Jones, are you gonna have them go back and trim up the bottom later,
The teapot?
or yeah?
Probably, because a lot of them are still throwing pretty thick.
Hey, same.
We'll start that.
So just take off a good amount of weight right now, and you can clean it up later. Then I guess and trim it.
Talked about a couple of ways of cleaning it up.
Who here had older siblings that graduated around 2018? Anyone have older brothers, sisters?
Josh
I don't know him. Do you do ceramics? Anyone else have older siblings?
Did you know Peter Warnick?
Did he do dance?
No, that was Peter. His
Not Peter.
TJ or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. No is the answer. I don't know him, I guess.
Peter Warnick, Amy Warnick is his sister.
No.
But I think no, he was a little younger.
He's younger, yeah.
He'd been a year or two younger than you. He was a welder and a videographer, right?
Oh. I did welding. I think I might know. Do you guys ever put your clay on and it just slides off? Does that still happen to you? No? Yes? I have that problem all the time still.
You know, one of the best parts about pottery is there's a unique way for every person to do whatever. One of the bad parts about pottery is you get a bunch of potters together, and one of the things they're thinking or saying is, well, I wouldn't do it that way. And they're always critiquing other people. I'm not critiquing
Yeah, I
people.
know.
It's good to see other people's takes on things. Parker was in here last week. We had Brian Jensen from UVU come in and teach us some stuff. He does things just a little bit differently than I do, although I learned from him. It's pretty cool. We can adjust for our own sake.
You guys are super lucky. Jones does a lot of demos. I take, like I said, my minor's in ceramics. So I take a ceramics class every semester up at school. And my professor never does any demos. And so don't take those for granted. They're super helpful. You kind of just have to learn on your own, which has its own benefit, but it's also nice to see other people throw. So I'm going to do the 2 measurements, I guess one at a time.
Here, give me a second.
That'd be awesome. Have you used the calipers before? You know how obviously pretty simple. So I'll take the inner one right now. And use this for the outer one.
Measure the inside of both, right?
Yep, that's alright. Inside of both. Okay, so there's so many different ways to do lids. I'm gonna show you a way that's actually a little different than this one. Can you do knobs on their teapots? Is that alright? Okay. I'm gonna show you a way, because I like to make a lid that has a knob. I just like the look of it, and it's more practical in my opinion. So I'm gonna show you a way that has a knob. This is kind of this one looks nice. It just sits, and you'll obviously trim this up, but I like this one because it sits flat and looks nice. But I'll show you one that you can, so you can obviously do that one, or I'll show you one that you can have a knob to take on and off. Okay, so I'm going to focus first on the smaller one, the inner circle. And that's going to be, the size of that is going to be about the width of the clay that I'm going to center. So it's kind of hard to imagine how the lid's going to look. When you throw it this way, it's going to be you throw it upside down, right? The way I'm going to throw it, it's actually going to sit that way, right side up, okay? So kind of imagine that as I'm throwing that. So I need it to be about that wide on the bottom. So obviously I have to bring it in more. And I already know this is way too much clay, so I'm gonna take some off right now so I don't have to work with all that. Probably should have done that earlier. And recenter that to make sure it stays on. Okay. So mine's still a little thick, so I'll bring it in more. Okay. And I'm gonna flatten the top a little bit. It's gonna look kind of like a mushroom. While trying to keep the width at the bottom. Check that size again. And you can keep it a little bigger because you can always trim off, but you can't add to it, right? Okay, I'm gonna go just off center, about halfway from the outside to the inside, and push down. And it's gonna create 2 separate chunks of clay. And just another helpful tip with throwing in general, especially with smaller, intricate things. Super important to do everything super slow, especially lifting off. I see a lot of people, and I do this all the time. Once you get where you want it to, then you just pull away and then slip up a little bit. So always make sure to do super slow movements. So I've created kind of those 2 separate chunks of clay. And then I'm gonna push down on the middle. And this area is going to be the knob. Okay, so this is the knob. This will be the outside where the lid sits. And then this will be the inside. So those are different sizes that you have to do. I'm going to push down a little more on this finger to create a little bigger difference. And right now I'm working on the knob. Bring it out a little bit and then bring it in. So there's lots of different things with the knob that you can do. You can do a full knob, you can close it off at the top. You can leave it partially open, whatever you want to do. A lot of people just do about half of this and just kind of have an open knob like that. Really whatever you want to do, you're able to do.
It's one of the reasons why when I say you should make 2 or 3 or 4 lids for this project, you should make 2 or 3 or 4. And you can mess up on them, you can try new things, you can trim them, see what works best and looks best.
So mine's gotten quite off center. I'm gonna cut quite a bit off the top. And kind of try to reform that. Okay, and I'll do the rest of that later. So now I'm gonna focus on doing the part that'll sit on top of it, this part out here. Make sure to keep this same width on the bottom, try not to change anything with that. And then I'm gonna push up with my bottom finger and kind of lift that out. And then with my top hand, I'm gonna push down and you'll see it'll kind of form what I'm wanting it to form to match that. And then bring it out. Can you kind of see what the shape is going to be? Obviously it's going to sit on top there. And it's going to be way too wide, so I'm going to have to trim a lot off. But before I trim it, I'm going to thin it out a little bit because it's a little too thick still. So I'm pushing up with my bottom, down with my top, and moving it out until I get the thickness I want. Now I'll use the bigger measurement, see where it's going to sit there, and trim that amount. Check the smaller one, see if it's about the same still. And take a little bit off. and I'm gonna slow it down to work with the knob a little bit more. And with this one, I'm not gonna close it, I'm gonna keep it open. But if you wanted to close it, it's super simple. Just keep bringing it closer and closer together. It'll kind of close itself up. That creates a pocket, right? So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to use the needle tool after you let it dry a little bit. Use a needle tool from the bottom, poke it up through, or else it's going to explode in the kiln, okay? But I'm gonna leave mine open. Okay, any questions with the lids? Pretty simple.
Two things I'll cover real quick. One, you should always, if possible, throw your lid at the same time with the same clay body that you're even bag or same batch as you threw your teapot, if possible. If not, and I would recommend this, you take those two measurements, get a ruler and measure those and write those down. That way, if you want to make a new lid, you can do that the next day, but you don't measure your teapot because the teapot's already started to shrink. Does that make sense? So I would do that, write down your measurements. Or like what I do, I throw a couple of things, I throw a bunch of lids, kind of just run from there. But again, if you're running out of time, measure, take those measurements, write them down so that you can fix that. And in fact, a lot of professional potters will do that so that if somebody's like, hey, my teapot in this glaze, the lid broke, they can send them a new lid. And it should match up just fine because they know what measurements they're making those at. Anything else you want to cover?
No, I think you guys have any questions about any of this? It's pretty simple. Take some practice.
It does take some practice. We will cover some other things on Wednesday here. We're going to cover some hand building stuff on Wednesday. I want to show you just a couple of things, and then we'll get the grading sheets out and you can start to turn in your bases. They need to be turned in. So let me hit stop on this. Let's give Nick a round of applause.
Oh, stop.